Kyle Busch's wife Samantha reflects on her husband's sudden death in an emotional message. Samantha, who shares 2 children with the late NASCAR legend, writing in a June 5th Instagram post,
When Samantha Busch finally broke her silence, NASCAR fans expected a heartfelt tribute. What they didn't expect was the wave of emotion that followed. Her words pulled back the curtain on years of victories, struggles, sacrifices, and moments that never made headlines. As tributes poured in from across the racing world, many found themselves looking beyond Kyle Busch, the driver, and seeing Kyle Busch, the husband, father, and friend. What made Samantha's message so powerful wasn't just what she said. It was everything the couple had endured together before she said it. The message that stopped NASCAR fans in their tracks. When Samantha Busch finally broke her silence, the response was immediate. Fans who had followed Kyle Busch for years expected a heartfelt message, but few were prepared for the raw emotion that poured from her statement. In a sport built on speed, competition, and larger-than-life personalities, Samantha's words brought everything to a standstill. For a moment, the focus was no longer on trophies, championships, rivalries, or race results. It was on loss, memory, and the human story behind one of NASCAR's most recognizable figures. What struck many people was how personal the message felt. Samantha did not speak like someone addressing a crowd. She spoke like a wife trying to put into words an unimaginable reality. Every sentence carried the weight of years spent building a life together. Fans who had watched the couple share milestones, overcome obstacles, and raise a family suddenly found themselves seeing a side of their story that was far more intimate than anything shown on race broadcasts. The reaction across the NASCAR community was swift. Drivers, crew members, broadcasters, and longtime fans flooded social media with messages of support. Some shared memories of Kyle from the track. Others talked about moments away from racing that revealed a different side of his personality. Many reflected on how easy it can be to judge athletes based solely on what happens during competition, while forgetting that there is a person behind the helmet. For years, Kyle Busch had been one of the most polarizing figures in the sport. His aggressive style and outspoken personality earned him both passionate supporters and equally passionate critics. He never seemed interested in being universally liked. Instead, he focused on winning, often embracing the role of the villain when the situation called for it. Yet as tributes continued to pour in, a different picture emerged. People spoke about his generosity, his commitment to helping young drivers, and his devotion to his family. That contrast made Samantha's statement even more powerful. The public knew Kyle as a fierce competitor. Samantha knew the man who came home after the races were over. She knew the husband who shared her dreams and disappointments. She knew the father who celebrated family milestones that never appeared in headlines. Her words reminded people that no public reputation can fully capture a person's life. The emotional response from fans also reflected how invested many had become in the couple's journey. Over the years, Samantha and Kyle chose to share some of the most difficult chapters of their lives with the public. They spoke openly about challenges that many families face, but few discuss so publicly. Through those experiences, fans began to see them not just as public figures, but as people navigating the same uncertainties and struggles that affect countless others. As tributes continued, stories surfaced from every stage of Kyle's career. Some remembered his earliest days as a young prospect with extraordinary talent. Others recalled championship celebrations, dramatic victories, and unforgettable moments that helped define modern NASCAR. Friends and colleagues described a competitor who pushed himself relentlessly and demanded excellence from everyone around him. Even those who had clashed with him during his career often acknowledged the respect they had for his determination and accomplishments. For Samantha, however, those public achievements represented only one part of the story. Behind every race weekend was a family making sacrifices together. Behind every victory was a support system that rarely received attention. Behind every setback was a private struggle that most fans never witnessed. Her statement brought those realities into focus. Perhaps that is why the message resonated so deeply. It was not because she revealed a shocking secret or exposed some hidden truth. It was because her words reminded people how quickly public accomplishments can fade into the background when measured against the relationships that matter most. In a matter of moments, fans were no longer talking about statistics or championships. They were talking about a husband, a father, and a life that had touched countless people. What made Samantha's message so powerful wasn't just what she said. It was everything the couple had endured together before she said it. But their story didn't begin with that statement. Before the championships, before the fame. Long before the sold-out grandstands, championship celebrations, and heated rivalries, Kyle Busch was simply a kid who loved racing. His story began in Las Vegas, Nevada, where motorsports were already a part of everyday life. Racing was not some distant dream that appeared later in childhood. It was woven into the environment around him from the very beginning. His father was heavily involved in the sport, and his older brother, Kyle Busch, had already started developing a reputation as a talented young driver. For Kyle, race cars were not unusual sights. They were part of the family routine. Like many future stars, he showed signs of talent at an early age. While other children were still figuring out what hobbies interested them, Kyle was learning the basics of racing. He spent countless hours around garages, tracks, and vehicles, absorbing information from experienced racers. The lessons he learned during those years became the foundation of everything that followed. One of the most remarkable things about Kyle's rise was how quickly people noticed his potential. Coaches, competitors, and racing insiders frequently spoke about his natural feel behind the wheel. Some drivers spend years learning how to manage a race, conserve equipment, and find speed at the right moments. Kyle seemed to understand many of those concepts instinctively. Even at a young age, he displayed confidence that separated him from many of his peers. As he progressed through lower racing divisions, victories began to pile up. Success naturally brought attention, but it also created pressure. Expectations grew larger with every win. Young athletes often struggle when people begin predicting greatness before they have fully developed. Kyle appeared to embrace the challenge. Rather than shrinking from the spotlight, he seemed energized by it. His relationship with his older brother also became an important part of his development. Kurt had already established himself as a serious competitor, giving Kyle a first-hand look at the realities of professional racing. The brothers were different in personality, but both shared a fierce competitive streak. Having someone so close who understood the demands of the sport likely helped prepare Kyle for the road ahead. Eventually, opportunities arrived at higher levels of competition. Each promotion brought tougher opponents and greater scrutiny. Yet Kyle continued to adapt. He was no longer competing solely against local talent. He was racing against individuals who had spent years chasing the same dream. Even so, his ability continued to stand out. As his profile grew, so did discussions about his personality. Kyle was never known for carefully rehearsed answers or bland public appearances. He spoke his mind, sometimes to the frustration of critics and sometimes to the delight of supporters. That honesty became a defining feature of his public image. While some athletes worked tirelessly to avoid controversy, Kyle rarely seemed interested in changing who he was to satisfy public opinion. Over time, that attitude helped create the rowdy persona that would become famous throughout NASCAR. The nickname reflected more than aggressive driving. It represented a willingness to challenge expectations and embrace confrontation when necessary. Fans either loved the energy he brought to the sport or found themselves rooting against him every weekend. Very few people felt neutral. Ironically, that polarization helped make him one of NASCAR's biggest attractions. Sports thrive on personalities as much as performances. Every great era features competitors who generate strong reactions, and Kyle became one of those figures. Whether he won, lost, celebrated, or argued, people paid attention. The early years of his professional career demonstrated exactly why so many believed he could become a champion. Race after race, he displayed extraordinary speed and versatility. He could compete on different types of tracks and adapt to changing conditions. When opportunities appeared, he often capitalized on them with remarkable consistency. Success did not come without setbacks, but even difficult moments seemed to reinforce the belief that he possessed rare talent. As the victories accumulated, so did the expectations. Fans expected him to win. Teams expected him to deliver results. Media members analyzed every decision he made. The pressure that comes with such attention can overwhelm even elite athletes. Yet Kyle continued moving forward, determined to prove that the hype surrounding him was justified. Looking back, it is easy to focus on the championships and records that eventually followed. But those achievements were built on years of preparation, sacrifice, and relentless competition. The confident driver who became one of NASCAR's defining figures did not appear overnight. He was shaped by family influence, early opportunities, hard-earned lessons, and an unwavering belief in his own abilities. By the time Kyle Busch became a household name, the foundation of his career had already been established. What remained uncertain was how he would balance the demands of racing with the rest of his life. As Kyle's career accelerated, someone important entered his life: Kyle's Samantha. By the time Samantha entered Kyle Busch's life, he was already building a reputation as one of the most talented and talked-about drivers in NASCAR. His career was moving at full speed, and with every passing season came greater expectations, more media attention, and more pressure. From the outside, it might have seemed like he had everything under control. But success on the racetrack does not automatically translate into stability away from it. Like many professional athletes, Kyle was still trying to navigate the challenges that came with fame, competition, and public scrutiny. Their relationship began during a period when Kyle's career was still evolving. Samantha came from a different background, and she was not entering a normal relationship. Dating a professional race car driver meant dealing with an unusual lifestyle. Race weekends consumed a large portion of the calendar. Travel was constant. Public attention followed almost everywhere they went. Even private moments could quickly become topics of discussion among fans and media outlets. Despite those challenges, the connection between them continued to grow. Friends and observers often noted that Samantha seemed to bring balance to Kyle's life. While he was known for his intense competitiveness and fiery personality, Samantha appeared calm, grounded, and supportive. Their personalities were different in many ways, yet those differences often complemented one another. As their relationship developed, Samantha gained a first-hand understanding of the realities of life in professional motorsports. The public often sees the exciting side of racing: the victories, celebrations, sponsorships, and television appearances. What is less visible are the long hours, the emotional highs and lows, and the uncertainty that comes with a sport where fortunes can change in an instant. There were weekends when everything went perfectly, and celebrations lasted long into the evening. There were also weekends filled with frustration, disappointment, and criticism. In NASCAR, a driver can go from hero to villain in a matter of moments. Samantha witnessed those shifts up close. She saw how intensely Kyle cared about his performance and how deeply he felt both victories and defeats. The couple married in 2010, marking the beginning of a new chapter together. Marriage brought its own adjustments. They were no longer simply navigating a relationship. They were building a shared life while living under a spotlight that rarely dimmed. Every major event seemed to attract attention. Fans wanted updates. Reporters wanted interviews. Social media ensured that public interest followed them almost everywhere. What made their partnership stand out was the way they approached those challenges as a team. Samantha was never merely a spectator in Kyle's life. She became one of his most important sources of support. Through championship pursuits, difficult seasons, controversies, and career milestones, she remained a constant presence beside him. At the same time, Samantha gradually developed her own public identity. While many spouses of athletes remain largely in the background, she became increasingly involved in projects, advocacy work, and public appearances. Fans began to know her not simply as Kyle Busch's wife, but as someone with her own voice and interests. That independence strengthened their partnership rather than overshadowing it. Of course, no marriage is free from challenges. Living in the public eye can place strain on even the strongest relationships. Every disagreement can become a rumor. Every difficult period can generate speculation. The couple occasionally faced criticism from people who knew very little about their private lives. Learning how to ignore outside noise became an important skill. Through it all, trust remained at the center of their relationship. Racing demanded that Kyle spend significant time away from home, while Samantha often managed responsibilities that came with their growing public profile. Maintaining a strong marriage under those circumstances required communication, patience, and mutual respect. Over the years, fans began seeing a different side of Kyle. The fierce competitor who battled rivals on Sundays often appeared far more relaxed when he was with Samantha. Interviews, public appearances, and personal stories revealed moments of humor and warmth that contrasted sharply with his aggressive racing image. For many observers, Samantha helped humanize a driver who was often defined solely by his competitiveness. Their relationship also demonstrated something that many successful athletes eventually discover. No amount of professional achievement can replace having people you trust when the cameras are gone. Championships and trophies bring recognition, but they do not provide the same sense of stability as a strong partnership. Samantha became part of the foundation that helped Kyle navigate the pressures of an extraordinary career. Yet even with a strong marriage and growing success, the couple soon encountered a challenge far more difficult than any race Kyle would ever face. Yet some of their toughest battles happened far away from the racetrack. The struggles behind the best relationship. For years, Kyle and Samantha Busch appeared to be building the kind of life many couples dream about. Kyle's career was thriving, they had established a strong marriage, and the future seemed full of possibilities. Yet behind the scenes, they were dealing with a challenge that neither success nor determination could easily solve.
We went down to reach, and finally somebody gave us answers. They said they tested him and me, and he just basically said there's no way.
Yeah, he said the two of you were never going to conceive.
Like many couples, they hoped to start a family. It was a goal that seemed simple enough on the surface, but as time passed, they found themselves confronting unexpected difficulties. The process became far more complicated than either of them had imagined. What began as concern gradually turned into frustration, uncertainty, and heartbreak. Infertility is often described as one of the loneliest struggles a couple can experience. Unlike many hardships, it is not always visible to others. Friends and family may not know what is happening. People ask innocent questions without realizing the pain those questions can cause. Meanwhile, the couple carries the emotional burden privately, often while trying to maintain a sense of normalcy. For Kyle and Samantha, that burden became a significant part of their lives. The emotional toll was substantial. There were moments of hope followed by disappointment. There were medical appointments, difficult conversations, and periods when the future felt uncertain. The experience tested their patience and resilience in ways neither had anticipated. One of the most challenging aspects was the loss of control. On the racetrack, Kyle built his career on preparation and performance. If he wanted better results, he could study data, improve his equipment, and refine his skills. Infertility did not work that way. Effort alone could not guarantee success. No amount of determination could force the outcome they wanted. For Samantha, the experience brought its own unique challenges. Much of the physical and emotional burden associated with fertility treatments fell on her shoulders. The process required immense strength, not only physically but mentally. Every new step carried expectations. Every setback carried disappointment. Yet she continued moving forward. Eventually, the couple decided to pursue in vitro fertilization, commonly known as IVF. The decision represented both hope and risk. IVF offered a path toward the family they wanted, but it also came with emotional, financial, and physical demands. Success was never guaranteed. What made their story especially notable was their willingness to discuss it publicly. Many public figures choose to keep deeply personal struggles private, and that decision is completely understandable. Kyle and Samantha took a different approach. They shared parts of their journey with fans, knowing that openness could invite both support and criticism. Their honesty resonated with countless people. Suddenly, fans were seeing a side of the couple that had nothing to do with racing. This was not a story about championships or sponsorships. It was a story about hope, disappointment, perseverance, and the desire to build a family. The public response was overwhelming. Many people reached out with messages describing their own experiences. Some had faced infertility themselves. Others knew friends or relatives who had endured similar struggles. Through those conversations, Kyle and Samantha discovered that they were far from alone. The experience also changed how many fans viewed them. Before then, some people primarily knew Kyle as NASCAR's fiery competitor. Seeing him discuss such a personal challenge revealed a more vulnerable side. It reminded people that even highly successful individuals face hardships that money, fame, and talent cannot solve. There were difficult moments throughout the journey. Not every treatment brought good news. Not every attempt produced the outcome they hoped for. Each setback required them to find the strength to continue. For many couples, that cycle of hope and disappointment can become emotionally exhausting. Yet through those setbacks, they leaned on one another. The struggle became a test of their marriage, but it also strengthened their bond. Facing adversity together often reveals the true foundation of a relationship. In Kyle and Samantha's case, it reinforced their commitment to supporting each other through circumstances beyond their control. Eventually, their perseverance was rewarded. The arrival of their son marked a life-changing moment. After years of uncertainty, the dream they had fought so hard for became reality. The joy that followed was difficult to put into words. For the couple, it represented more than simply welcoming a child. It represented the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Their journey did not end there. In later years, their family continued to grow, bringing even more happiness into their lives.
Kyle Busch and his wife Samantha have openly shared their own difficulties over the years.
Through IVF, they are now parents to 9-year-old son Brexton and 2-year-old daughter Lennox.
But the lessons from those difficult years never disappeared. The experience shaped their perspective and influenced how they approached life moving forward. In many ways, this chapter became one of the most important parts of their story. Championships, victories, and career accomplishments created headlines, but the fertility journey revealed something deeper about who they were as people. It showed resilience during uncertainty, courage during disappointment, and faith during moments when giving up might have seemed easier. For Samantha especially, those years helped define the voice that many fans would later come to admire. Her willingness to speak honestly about painful experiences allowed others to feel less alone in their own struggles. What began as a private battle ultimately became a source of encouragement for countless families facing similar challenges. Years later, when people reflected on Kyle and Samantha's journey together, many would remember not only the races and trophies, but also the determination they displayed during this deeply personal chapter of their lives. Eventually, years of uncertainty gave way to something they had dreamed about for a long time. Family, fatherhood, and a different side of Kyle Busch. When Kyle and Samantha finally welcomed children into their lives, the change was immediate. The couple had spent years chasing a dream that at times felt frustratingly out of reach. Now, after all the uncertainty and emotional ups and downs, they were experiencing the reality they had worked so hard to achieve. Parenthood brought new responsibilities, new routines, and a completely different perspective on what mattered most. For fans who only knew Kyle Busch from race day broadcasts, this chapter revealed a side of him that many rarely saw. On the track, he remained the same fierce competitor who refused to back down from challenges. He still raced aggressively, still chased victories relentlessly, and still carried the intense personality that had defined much of his career. At home, however, people began to see a much different version of the NASCAR star. Samantha occasionally shared glimpses of their family life, and those moments helped reshape public perception. The driver, who often appeared serious and intense in interviews, could suddenly be seen laughing with his children, celebrating milestones, or simply enjoying ordinary family moments. For many fans, it was a reminder that public figures often have dimensions that never appear in headlines. Fatherhood seemed to give Kyle a new appreciation for balance. Professional racing demands enormous amounts of time and energy. Drivers spend much of the year traveling, preparing for races, meeting sponsors, and fulfilling media obligations. The schedule can easily consume every aspect of life. Having children created a powerful reason to step away from that world whenever possible and focus on home. That did not mean his competitive drive disappeared. If anything, some observers believed it became even stronger. Many athletes talk about gaining extra motivation after becoming parents. The desire to provide for their families and set a positive example often adds a new layer of purpose. Kyle appeared to embrace that mindset. Success was no longer only about personal achievement. It was also about creating opportunities for the people he loved most. One of the most visible parts of this family chapter involved their son, Brexton. Racing fans quickly noticed that motorsports seemed to run in the family. As Brexton began participating in youth racing events, comparisons to his father naturally followed. Videos and photos of father and son at racetracks generated significant attention among NASCAR fans. Kyle often appeared genuinely enthusiastic about helping guide his son's development. Yet unlike some parents who attempt to control every aspect of a child's athletic journey, he frequently emphasized the importance of allowing Brexton to enjoy the experience. Winning mattered, but learning and having fun mattered too. Watching those interactions provided another glimpse into Kyle's character. Fans who had spent years seeing him battle competitors suddenly saw him in the role of teacher and mentor. The patience required to help a young racer develop was very different from the intensity required to compete at NASCAR's highest level. Meanwhile, Samantha continued playing a crucial role in maintaining balance within the family. Life in a racing household can be unpredictable. Travel schedules, media obligations, and competition demands often create logistical challenges that many families never encounter. Samantha frequently became the steady presence that helped keep everything running smoothly. The couple also faced the same challenges experienced by countless parents. There were school events, family responsibilities, and decisions about how to raise children in an environment where public attention was never far away. While their circumstances were unique in some respects, many aspects of parenthood remained surprisingly familiar. As the years passed, family increasingly became one of the defining themes of Kyle's public image. While he would always be remembered for his accomplishments on the racetrack, fans began associating him with his role as a husband and father as well. The transformation was not dramatic or sudden. It happened gradually through countless small moments that revealed who he was away from competition. Those moments also helped explain why Samantha's later words resonated so strongly with so many people. By then, fans had spent years watching the family grow together. They had celebrated milestones, followed personal updates, and witnessed a journey that extended far beyond NASCAR. The connection many people felt was not based solely on racing success. It was based on seeing a family navigate life's joys and challenges together. Even as family became a larger part of his identity, one thing never changed. Kyle Busch remained one of the most accomplished and talked-about competitors in modern NASCAR history. Even as his personal life evolved, Kyle remained one of the sport's most talked-about competitors. Remembering Kyle. Over the course of his career, Kyle Busch built a resume that placed him among the most successful drivers of his generation. He collected victories at an astonishing rate, won championships, and established himself as a competitor capable of succeeding on virtually any type of track. Whether fans loved him or rooted against him every weekend, few questioned his talent. He became one of the defining figures of modern NASCAR. His career was filled with memorable moments. There were dramatic wins, heated rivalries, comeback stories, and championship runs that showcased both his skill and determination. He earned a reputation for refusing to back down from challenges, even when criticism followed closely behind. That competitive fire helped create the rowdy image that became synonymous with his name. Yet, as the years passed, his legacy became about more than statistics. Behind every victory lane, celebration stood a support system that helped make those achievements possible. Samantha was there through the triumphs and disappointments, the controversies and accomplishments, the highs that made headlines and the struggles that remained private. Together, they experienced far more than a racing career. They built a marriage in the public eye, endured difficult personal challenges, and created the family they had dreamed of for years. Through every chapter, they continued moving forward as a team. That is what made Samantha's statement resonate so deeply with fans. The emotion in her words was not rooted in a single moment. It reflected years of shared experiences, sacrifices, victories, setbacks, and memories. People were not simply reacting to what she said. They were reacting to everything they knew had come before it. For many fans, Kyle Busch will always be remembered as a champion driver. Others will remember the rivalries, the intensity, and the unforgettable races. But for those who followed the family's journey, another image remains just as powerful. A husband, a father, and a man whose life extended far beyond the racetrack. Samantha's message was not shocking because it revealed a hidden secret. It moved people because it reminded them that behind every public figure is a personal story. And behind Kyle Busch's remarkable career was a family that shared every step of the journey with him, right up to the very end. As the story comes full circle, what remains is not just Kyle Busch's career, but the life he built with Samantha through every high and low. Subscribe to this channel for more stories.